We're going to read a piece from a book by Shel Silverstein. It's from a book called Light in the Attic. And it was someone in Webb City, Missouri, tried to ban this from a school library there because a parent protested that the book imparts a dreary and depressing message. A couple of years ago, someone also tried to ban this book for this poem, which they said encouraged disobedience.
So, if you're a big reader and you like to keep up with the news, you're probably well aware of the recent push to ban books across the United States. Of course, if you're a generation or two ahead of me, you know this is nothing new. Parents, mostly misguided parents, some malicious, have been attempting to take knowledge from classrooms and libraries for decades. The trends in book banning today are hardly different from what we've seen in the past. And don't just take it from me, take it from sociology professor Fred L. Pincus, who wrote on that very subject nearly 2 years ago. But for all the similarities in each movement, Pincus acknowledges that the push today is rooted more in racism, whereas in the 1980s, book banning movements were rooted more in religious fanaticism. Just ask Melissa Gopp Warner, whose church-going mother tried to ban Shel Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends from her daughter's Christian elementary school. Gopp Warner notes that her mother was not an outlier, but on the cutting edge of the 80s book banning efforts. She further expressed her surprise at finding out her mother was not the only one who had an issue with Silverstein's books. Admittedly, I was in the same boat. If you're like me and you went to elementary school in the early 2000s, you might have had no idea that Shel Silverstein was such a challenged author. I certainly didn't. Nevertheless, on the American Library Association's list of the 100 most frequently challenged books from 1990 to 1999, Silverstein's most popular poetry collection, A Light in the Attic, sits at number 51. What made this book so detestable to parents? What is it that left the book in classrooms regardless? Maybe we should take a step back. Let's start with this. Who was Shel Silverstein? Poets.org describes him as a cartoonist, playwright, poet, performer, and recording artist. His first book was a collection of his cartoons. Silverstein was a versatile man. As archived by Wikipedia, Otto Penzler called Silverstein a Renaissance man, recognizing that the term was overused even in 1998. Poets.org also highlights Silverstein's status as a Grammy winner and Oscar nominee. Today, perhaps more than anything, we remember him as a poet. What's interesting is that, according to the Central Rappahannock Regional Library, Silverstein was unfamiliar with the great poetry of his time and never intended to be a poet or a children's book author. He was sort of ushered into the field by his friend Tommy Ungerer and editor Ursula Nordstrom. Normally, Silverstein's qualifications would make him a bad poet. In general, I think it's sort of a given that one should be familiar with poetry to write decent poetry. However, while Silverstein didn't have much technical poetic know-how, he did have songwriting knowledge. His first published album, Harry Jazz, came out in 1959, 2 years before his first foray into semi-poetic writing, Uncle Shelby's ABZ book. As journalists like Gopp Warner and Andrea Sayre have pointed out, Silverstein may have been challenged less for his content and more for his character. He was a controversial figure in the eyes of conservatives and God-fearing parents. For one thing, he illustrated for Playboy and spent plenty of time at the mansion. Silverstein was also pretty critical of the US Army and the Korean War, a war into which he was conscripted. He managed to avoid combat by getting hired by the military newspaper Stars and Stripes, but that didn't stop his cynical attitude toward the institutions around the war. According to an interview with the newspaper years later, Silverstein was progressively banned from making cartoons about anything except civilians and animals. Beyond that, Silverstein also fell into the category of a tortured artist, with tragedy following him frequently. The mother of his daughter died from cancer. Then, at just 11 years old, his daughter Shoshana Jordan Hastings died before he took the opportunity to truly get to know her. A Light in the Attic was dedicated to Shoshana. A lot of people don't realize this, but A Light in the Attic was one of the most popular children's books of all time. Heck, one of the most popular books of all time. As Antonio Aiello tells us, published in 1981, Shel Silverstein's A Light in the Attic was the first children's book to make the New York Times bestseller list, where it stayed for a record-breaking 182 weeks. I thought it would be worth our time to take a look at Shel Silverstein and ask ourselves just what made him so controversial, but also what gives him such staying power. Why do we still consider him when reflecting on great poets of the past? These here are the Silverstein books that I own, As you can see, my copy of A Light in the Attic is well loved and possibly stolen from my grade school teacher. Ms. Evans, if you're watching this, I'm genuinely so sorry. Regardless, let's crack this open and try to get inspired. Sayre describes Silverstein's style as full of riddles and requires a lot to be deciphered by reading in between the lines. That's not true for every poem in his collection, but several, certainly. Similarly, Poets.org characterized his style as a mixture of the sly and the serious, the macabre and the silly. This is all correct, but I want to break it down further. When it comes to both Silverstein's controversy and timelessness, I want to take a look at the way he employs humor, relatability, surrealism, deconstructed language, sentiment, and depth in his poems. On top of that, we'll also definitely take a look at the more controversial poems, as well as those that are utterly profound, and we may see some overlap there. It's not hard to find humor in Silverstein's work. Every few pages we find a poem worth a good chuckle. Take this one titled Something Missing. I remember I put on my socks. I remember I put on my shoes. I remember I put on my tie that was painted in beautiful purples and blues. I remember I put on my coat to look perfectly grand at the dance, yet I feel there is something I may have forgot. What is it? What is it? I like this poem especially when we consider the target audience of children. We'll see this throughout the book, but Silverstein is smart enough to treat his child readers with maturity. Rather than spelling out the joke for them, he gives children the tools to figure it out for themselves. Sure, the drawing is doing a lot of the work too, but regardless, it's important that we remember this book's target audience. There's nothing wrong with writing poetry directed primarily at children. In fact, I think a lot of poets today would be taken more seriously if they marketed their poetry to different audiences instead of pretending to be something they're not. But I digress. I can imagine this poem causing some pearl clutching from especially conservative parents, so let's take a look at a more innocent one. Memorizin' Mo. Mo memorized the dictionary, but just can't seem to find a job. Or anyone who wants to marry someone who memorized the dictionary. This poem is funny but also deeply relatable. Most of us have interests separate from our careers, and often the desire to fulfill our interests clashes with our need to work. Moreover, I imagine many of us have a fear that our interests are too niche and keep us from connecting with others, maybe even in a romantic sense. That's part of where the humor comes from, the sadly sympathetic quality. Speaking of relatability, this book is dripping with it, for both children and adults. This poem, Moon Catchin' Net, particularly struck me. I've made a moon catchin' net, and I'm goin' huntin' tonight. I'll run along swingin' it over my head and grab for that big ball of light. So tomorrow, just look at the sky, and if there's no moon, you can bet I found what I sought, and I finally caught the moon in my moon catchin' net. But if the moon's still shinin' there, look close underneath and you'll get a clear look at me in the sky swingin' free, with a star in my moon catchin' net. Taking this poem at face value for just a moment, not analyzing any of the depth yet, I feel that it so incredibly captures the mind of a child. I can say that confidently because when I was 4 years old, I distinctly remember seeing the moon up in the sky. Because it was visible to me, I thought it was within reach, and I always pictured myself lassoing it and bringing it to Earth where I could bounce it like a ball, since it looked that small in perspective. Furthermore, take a look at this poem, What If? Last night while I lay thinkin' here, some what-ifs crawled inside my ear, and pranced and partied all night long, and sang their same old what-if song. What if I'm dumb in school? What if they've closed the swimming pool? What if I get beat up? What if there's poison in my cup? What if I start to cry? What if I get sick and die? What if I flunk that test? What if green hair grows on my chest? What if nobody likes me? What if a bolt of lightning strikes me? What if I don't grow taller? What if my head starts getting smaller? What if the fish won't bite? What if the wind tears up my kite? What if they start a war? What if my parents get divorced? What if the bus is late? What if my teeth don't grow in straight? What if I tear my pants? What if I never learn to dance? Everything seems swell, and then the nighttime what-ifs strike again. As a child who was seriously afraid of everything, this poem resonates with me. Now, as an adult who still feels anxiety in all sorts of ways, this poem still resonates with me. In the Megan Fox video, we talked a little bit about repetition. I mentioned how repetition should be used carefully because when used too frequently, it can make a reader rush rather than linger. But here, that almost seems to be the point, no? The repetition and rushed feeling of the poem just heighten the sense of anxiety. Not to mention the space is removed between the two words, not only to personify the what-ifs, but also to deepen the urgency in the speaker's mind. Let's move to a similarly relatable poem, but one that also emphasizes Silverstein's use of surrealism. This poem is titled Thumb Face. It reads, "There is a face upon my thumb. I did not paint it there. With pointy ears and winky eyes and greenish bristly hair. I keep it hidden from my friends so that they will not stare. It has a little twisty mouth and yellow teethies too. It snickers when I hold my fork, it giggles when I'm blue, and laughs and laughs and laughs at everything I do." This is an effective metaphor for both shame and self-consciousness. The face on the thumb is simply a part of the speaker, not something they chose, and yet they have to feel ashamed of it. The face convinces them that everything is wrong with them. This is such a unique way to get these experiences across, one that I would never have thought to use. It's surrealist, definitely, but it's also right on the money. Here's another, much more disturbingly surrealist piece, one whose drawing enhances the poem's strange quality. Skin Stealer. This evening I unzipped my skin and carefully unscrewed my head, exactly as I always do when I prepare myself for bed. And while I slept, a cuckoo came, as naked as could be, and put on the skin and screwed on the head that once belonged to me. Now wearing my feet, he runs through the street in a most disgraceful way, doing things and saying things I'd never do or say, tickling the children and kicking the men and dancing the ladies away. So if he makes your bright eyes cry or makes your poor head spin, that scoundrel you see is not really me, he's the cuckoo who's wearing my skin. This poem is freaky, especially with the drawing accompanying it, but it's also kind of funny once the last few lines set in. The poem reads as a young deviant making up poor excuses for their bad actions. One thing Shel Silverstein loves to criticize in his poems is hypocrisy, and this poem certainly accomplishes that. Now, Deconstructed Language. We already saw some of that with What If, but there's plenty more. This poem, The Me Who with an Exactly What, is a play on language and reminiscent of Abbott and Costello's Who's On First, and reading the acknowledgments at the back of the book tells us it was directly inspired by them. Then there's this poem titled Nobody, which is much more ambiguous in the meaning of its linguistic play. Nobody loves me, nobody cares. Nobody picks me peaches and pears. Nobody offers me candy and cokes. Nobody listens and laughs at my jokes. Nobody helps me when I get in a fight. Nobody does all my homework at night. Nobody misses me. Nobody cries. Nobody thinks I'm a wonderful guy. So if you ask me who's my best friend in a whiz, I'll stand up and tell you that nobody is. But yesterday night, I got quite a scare. I woke up, and nobody just wasn't there. I called out and reached out for nobody's hand, in the darkness where nobody usually stands. Then I poked through the house in each cranny and nook, but I found somebody each place that I looked. I searched till I'm tired, and now with the dawn, there's no doubt about it, nobody's gone. Silverstein makes it difficult to understand whether nobody was a real entity, and as such, whether the ending of this poem is happy or sad. It's sort of reminiscent of the Odyssey when Odysseus says his name is nobody to trick the Cyclops, but in my mind Silverstein's work has even more layers, especially when saying that somebody was there in place of nobody. Is that to say the speaker is no longer alone, or alone in a different way? And I have a sneaking suspicion this confusion was all part of a joke on the reader. On the other hand, there's this poem that seems to take itself and the reader seriously. Important? Said little a to big G, without me, the sea would be the se, the flea would be the fle, and earth and heaven couldn't be without me. Said big G to little a, even the se could kirsch and spry, and the fle would fly in the sm old y, and earth and heaven would still be without thee. This poem is reminiscent of the work of Ferdinand de Saussure, whose work in linguistics taught that words are not objects themselves, words are merely signifiers of objects and ideas. The name we attribute to an object has nothing to do with the object. Both the word and the meaning of the word could change, and that would not affect the object. It's all very metaconceptual, and Silverstein explains it here in a way that's totally digestible. On another level, this poem also warns us that we shouldn't become too self-righteous. On a cosmic scale, we're not all that important. Sure, we might be important on an individual scale, and we should celebrate that, but we should never consider ourselves grander than the world itself. It's a lesson in humility. I also wanted to briefly highlight this poem, Hippo's Hope, for being meta-poetic and a meta-narrative at once, giving the reader the option of 3 different endings. But let's move on to sentiment and depth. When it comes to poems with genuine sentiment, this one jumped out to me as a clear favorite. Picture puzzle piece. One picture puzzle piece lying on the sidewalk. One picture puzzle piece soaking in the rain. It might be a button of blue on the coat of the woman who lived in a shoe. It might be a magical bean or a fold in the red velvet robe of a queen. It might be the one little bite of the apple her stepmother gave to Snow White. It might be the veil of a bride or a bottle with some evil genie inside. It might be a small tuft of hair on the big bouncy belly of Bobo the bear. It might be a bit of the cloak of the Witch of the West as she melted to smoke. It might be a shadowy trace of a tear that runs down an angel's face. Nothing has more possibilities than one old wet picture puzzle piece. This poem tells us that no matter how small or worthless we seem, we are all part of a bigger story, and that makes us beyond valuable. We all slot into a bigger picture, the picture of the human story. There are several other poems that read similarly, highlighting the importance of individuality, self-acceptance, and similarly self-determination. Moving on to a similar big idea, let's talk about a few of the poems that aren't so explicit with their meaning and offer some depth in interpretation. This poem, My Guitar, is a good example of how just one choice on the author's part can impact the meaning of an entire work. Oh, wouldn't it be a most wondrous thing to have a guitar that could play and could sing? By itself, what an absolute joy it would be to have a guitar that didn't need me. For me as a reader and interpreter, the ellipses add a certain quality to this poem. Without those 3 little dots, this poem might read like some of Silverstein's more comedic poems, but with the ellipses, the poem opens itself up more to interpretation. As for other poems that lend themselves well to interpretation, there's this one, Monsters I've Met. This one was challenged at the time of release in part due to the drawing, as parents deemed the whole page demonic. The poem itself reads, I met a ghost, but he didn't want my head. He only wanted to know the way to Denver. I met a devil, but he didn't want my soul. He only wanted to borrow my bike a while. I met a vampire, but he didn't want my blood. He only wanted 2 nickels for a dime. I keep meeting all the right people at all the wrong times. Then there's the poem for which the collection is named, A Light in the Attic. There's a light on in the attic, though the house is dark and shuttered. I can see a flicker and flutter, and I know what it's about. There's a light on in the attic. I can see it from the outside, and I know you're on the inside, looking out. I would love to hear everyone's interpretations of these poems in the comments. But from there, let's move on to the controversial and the profound, and we'll find that overlap that I teased earlier. This poem, How Not to Have to Dry the Dishes, was much maligned by parents at the time. See if you can spot why. If you have to dry the dishes, such an awful, boring chore. If you have to dry the dishes, instead of going to the store. If you have to dry the dishes, and you drop one on the floor, maybe they won't let you dry the dishes anymore. Then there's this poem, Homework Machine. The homework machine, oh the homework machine, most perfect contraption that's ever been seen. Just put in your homework, then drop in a dime. Snap on the switch, and in 10 seconds time, your homework comes out, quick and clean as can be. Here it is, 9 plus 4, and the answer is 3. 3? Oh me. I guess it's not as perfect as I thought it would be. Now, in reality, I think parents would be pretty on board with the idea of this poem. But while reading, I couldn't help but be caught off guard. It struck me as almost prophetic given the current conversation around AI, especially when noting the human drawn inside the homework machine. And I'm not saying Silverstein predicted anything about machine learning in the 21st century. Instead, I just mean to suggest that the ethical principles that guide us on the proper use of AI are the same that tell us it's not okay to cheat. When you use AI, you're profiting off someone else's work, just like the drawing depicts here. Moreover, there's a good chance that what AI spits out at you isn't even correct. But that's a subject for another day. Another poem that felt prophetic was this one, Gulu. The Gulu bird, she has no feet, she cannot walk upon the street, she cannot build herself a nest, she cannot land and take a rest. Through rain and snow and thunderous skies, she weeps forever as she flies, and lays her eggs high over town, and prays that they fall safely down. This poem feels especially relevant given the modern-day discussion around the rights of mothers, and what will happen to parents and children if those rights are taken away from them. But let's get into a couple of the truly controversial poems of the time, and with that in mind, small content warning. These next two poems touch on topics such as starvation, kidnapping, abuse, and what YouTube will force me to call unaliving oneself. If you don't want to hear me discuss any of that, skip to this timestamp. This is Little Abigail and the Beautiful Pony. This poem caused an insane stir at the time and likely still does to many who are familiar with it. I'll synthesize it. Essentially, little Abigail wants a pony, but her parents refuse to buy it for her. As such, her broken heart prevents her from eating and sleeping, and she passes away. It's understandable why this would create controversy, and I'm not saying the poem is free from fault, especially by today's standards, but most critics of the poem don't seem to understand the cruel joke of the work. The last 4 lines of the poem read, "This is a good story to read to your folks when they won't buy you something you want." The poem becomes a joke on parents and kids. The idea is that parents would be annoyed by having this poem read to them, and kids would be annoyed when they discover the poem doesn't work as promised. The poem is purposefully provocative, as many of Silverstein's works are. This next one, however, is noticeably different from every other poem in the collection. Maybe you'll see what I mean as I read it. Kidnapped. This morning I got kidnapped by 3 masked men. They stopped me on the sidewalk and offered me some candy, and when I wouldn't take it, they grabbed me by the collar and pinned my arms behind me, and shoved me in the back seat of this big black limousine, and tied my hands behind my back with sharp and rusty wire. Then they put a blindfold on me so I couldn't see where they took me, and plugged my ears with cotton so I couldn't hear their voices, and drove for 20 miles or at least for 20 minutes, and then dragged me from the car down to some cold and moldy basement, where they stuck me in a corner and went off to get the ransom, leaving one of them to guard me with a shotgun pointed at me. Tied up, sitting on a stool. That's why I'm late for school. This poem is tonally very distinct from every other work in the book. Sure, Silverstein's previous poems contained surrealism, some you could even call creepy, but this is just on another level. The language and visuals here feel viscerally real to an unsettling degree. There is no rhyme to comfort here, except in the poem's ending couplet. Perhaps that couplet is meant to provide some levity, sure, but then it begs a few questions. If this is a child giving an excuse, why is the excuse so vivid? Do they see the kidnapping as a better fate than being at school? As a child who was afraid of everything, this poem probably would have made me insanely paranoid if I'd read it too intently, and I actually kind of understand the challenge against this one. To Silverstein's credit, he probably knew how many uproars he would cause with this book. This poem, "They've put a brazier on the camel," seems to communicate his foresight. They've put a brazier on the camel. She wasn't dressed proper, you know. They've put a brazier on the camel so that her humps wouldn't show. And they're making other respectable plans. They're even insisting the pigs should wear pants. They'll dress up the ducks if we give them the chance, since they've put a brazier on the camel. They've put a brazier on the camel. They claim she's more decent this way. They've put a brazier on the camel had nothing to say. They squeezed her into it, I'll never know how. They say that she looks more respectable now. Lord knows what they've got in mind for the cow, since they've put a brazier on the camel. It's hard not to read this poem as anti-censorship, or at the very least anti-extreme censorship. Censorship where none is needed. To me, it's clear that Silverstein had respect for children. He was confident that they would understand his jokes. He trusted them to engage with concepts that other adults might deem too complicated or corrosive to their young minds. Ultimately, it would seem he didn't see children all that differently from adults. What's funny is that some of his poetry truly is problematic by today's standards. For example, this poem, The Bridge, uses this word right here, which we recognize is antiquated and offensive to many Romani people. But when it comes to the push to ban or challenge a light in the attic, none of the parents were truly thinking so progressively. As Aiello said, Silverstein strikes at the heart of what tyrants fear most, an impressionable challenge to think differently and to create something new. And as Gop Warner's principal said, this is how we teach our kids to think. If we don't expose our kids to views that are contrary to our own, they won't know how to handle them as adults. Ultimately, I'd like to close out with one more poem from Silverstein. Put something in. Draw a crazy picture, write a nutty poem, sing a mumble-gumble song, whistle through your comb, do a loony-goony dance, cross the kitchen floor, put something silly in the world that ain't been there before. But hey, what did you think of Silverstein's poetry growing up? What do you think of it now? And what are your thoughts on this video essay? Please tell me everything. And hey, a quick thing. There were a lot of poems in here that I wanted to include in this video, but I didn't want to make this too long. That said, I decided I'd take a short look at some other poems from the book on my Patreon. If you want to see me read and share brief analysis of these other poems, you can become a patron today. No matter what level you sign up for, you can see this little bonus video. On top of that, you can see all my videos early and get some other benefits. Also, follow me over on Instagram to see the books I'm reading, and feel free to submit poetry or prose to me at the link in the description. And hey, keep in mind, ultimately, this is a rough draft.